Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talkin Rangers. Today is Tuesday, May 6th. This is episode 65 or 66 rather, of the Talkin Rangers podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Been a minute since we spoke, but the last time we spoke, Rangers were wrapping up their 2024-2025 season, had locker cleanout day. Laviolette fired. Fast forward about 2 weeks later, and the Rangers got their new coach, Mike Sullivan, let go by the Penguins. A couple days later, Friday, he's hired by the Rangers, two-time Stanley Cup champion, back-to-back, 10 seasons, of course, with Pittsburgh. I think if you're a Rangers fan, a lot of you should like it. We'll break that down. We'll also get into the Rangers draft pick situation and some other notes. But, Joe, it's a new era. Mike Sullivan's here. Hopefully this is the start of something positive that lasts for more than 2 years for the Rangers, especially Chris Drury. This is it for him. This thing does not last for 2 years, then it's over. You got to hope that this is the start of some longevity at the coaching position, because the last two hires, 2 years and out. So how's it going, man?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you always get people that will say both, either or on every hire. Like, some people love it, some people hate it, but I feel like unanimously, I feel like this has got to be something that it's a good hire. I mean, Drury's done a lot of stuff that I've really hated, and I think he's been bad in the overall scheme of his work, but I do have to give him credit. I think it's a great hire. I think Sullivan's like top 5 coach. I mean, again, a couple of years haven't been great in Pittsburgh, but at the same time, I don't blame him. I maybe blame more so on the GM side, where they kind of invested into like late 30-year-old players that were on a heavy decline. Carlson, Letang, and Malkin, like they made no sense. Some of the moves they made, and they kind of just handcuffed them, where there's not really a lot of young guys on the team. So you can kind of attribute that to what their record is and where they stand the last couple of years. But I mean, his body of work definitely shows off for him, where 2 Stanley Cups, a lot of playoff appearances. So, I mean, obviously, again, you'll get people like, oh, well, he had Malkin, Letang, Crosby. But at the same time, you can have all those guys and not win. I mean, you've seen coaches come and go with elite talent that never win. I feel like it's another thing, not only to win, but to be able to demand the respect out of those kind of players, which I think you kind of give him more of a good like another thing that's good from him is that like I said, not just the wins, but being able to take over that locker room when you have those guys like Malkin and Crosby in it. But I think it's a great hire. I think that at the end of the day, it's something that needed to be done, where I think where this team probably wasn't going to go in that rebuild direction, which again, I still want, but like, I feel like if they were going to do that, they probably get more of a guy that's going to, be there a couple of years, Quinn, where he's just a transitional coach, where eventually you're just going to fire him anyway. But this kind of indicates that this team's probably still going to try to win. But he's a great coach, and I'm like I said, it's a good hire. How many times we've gone the top guy, so that's good. That's another thing where you kind of look at where the best guy available we got.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with a lot of those points. It felt like we mentioned this in the last episode of the names that the Rangers would look at in terms of guys that have been around for a while. Sullivan was the top of the list. The biggest question was if he'd actually become available from Pittsburgh. And once he became available, I think it became pretty clear that this was going to happen. Him and Drury have ties from USA. This is a job, big market, even though as much as it might not be appealing to too. Yeah, exactly. Under Tortorella's staff. His job from his standpoint, for a coach that's been around for a while, this can be an appealing job. For a younger coach, maybe not so much. But yeah, and I think you make a good point about all the talent. A lot of people can use that as a way to say, oh, it's more so the talent that got them to those cups. But I would, like you mentioned, demanding those out of those players is key. Crosby's also mentioned it. Not that he's going to go out there and say it's all them, but Crosby has talked about time and time again during his time in Pittsburgh how important Sullivan is. Coached the USA team 4 Nations, been involved with that for a while, which is something else on his resume that is certainly, can't be passed upon. But I think just you look at this Rangers team from that perspective, like they've had talent the last couple of years, and they haven't had the coach to get it out of them. They haven't had the accountability, haven't had the structure, haven't had the play style. So you can look at here and say with the Penguins, oh, well, they had, it's just the talent that got it there. Yeah, well, if that was the case, then the Rangers would probably be winning a lot more right now than they have, and would not be looking for a head coach because the talent's there. It's just they haven't had a coach to get it out of them. So hopefully Sullivan can be that guy. Got to play more north and south, get pucks in deep, forecheck, physical, hold players accountable, give these young guys, let them play, let them see ice time. Like Gabe Pro next year, you got to see play time from him. And I think this does signal kind of more maybe a retool, not really necessarily a rebuild. Still, I think you got to make moves. I don't think they're going to be, my gut probably would tell me, they probably don't do a whole lot this offseason, but, we'll see. He'll speak on Thursday, so I'm sure we'll get some more takeaways there. But just hopefully, just got to get way more out of this group. That's the biggest thing. Play a different style, hold players accountable, build a legitimate foundation here, because we haven't seen that these last two coaches. It's the same thing year in and year out, where basically what the coach has been saying is going right through the players' ears. And, Laviolette and other guys also didn't do a very good job of even changing lines or, leaving guys out of the lineup, whatever. Like, keep sending Meek out there. All that stuff was very questionable. Hopefully Sullivan can reverse that trend and be here long term. Like, be here more than 2 years.
Please, don't go to the conference final.
Yeah,
can't go conference final. Bad year, fired.
Yep, don't want to be here in 2 years talking about another new coach. So, and this is it for Drury. And there's no more. This is it. Like, if this doesn't work out,
he's definitely done.
He's done. And I can make the case too. If this team doesn't make the playoffs next year, you could look at the change at Drury, because
that's tough though. Because they just hired the new coach.
It's tough, but if they don't do much with this roster this year and they don't do much of the deadline and they miss the playoffs, how much longer can you go? How much longer can you kick the can down the road with him? Unless if it's Drury and Sullivan are tied here and however long he's here, then Drury's here, or vice versa. Like, give him a 2-year window and see what happens and then move forward, after that. But it'll be interesting. The Rangers are in a very interesting spot with needing to change this core, some young talent, some guys on this team that are good, that are veterans, but others not so good that need to go, get money off the books. Very interesting to see how they, go about that. In terms of Sullivan, like, developing players in his past, he had Gensel, Russ, Sheary was there too, Dumoulin. They were all younger during, some of those playoff runs, championship season. So, Russ has obviously put together a very productive career with Pittsburgh. So from that perspective, that could be a positive to look at. When you look at the, Will Cooley's of the world, the pros.
He hasn't really had any, to be fair to him too. It's like, I don't really take that
top
as
draft picks.
Yeah, he never does. So it's harder. Yeah. To develop guys that are getting drafted at the end of the draft or second, third round, because usually you maybe trade those picks. But
yeah,
I'm not concerned about that at all. So
yeah, and they also traded away. They had a decent chunk of deals too, where they traded away draft capital to.
He gave a bunch for Carlson. So
yeah, put their chips in the center for playoffs and chips and stuff like that.
Was Carlson? Did Carlson play in that series against the Rangers, or they traded for him after that?
I think it was after. I think last year was his. Wasn't it last year? I believe.
Was it the year after they got him, or was it the year that they played the Rangers?
I think it was the year. I think it was last year.
So he's never played a playoff game with them.
No. Yeah, because it was technically after the Devils series. Yeah.
They gave up a lot for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's played in the playoffs. I believe that was 2 years after the Rangers series, or 1 year technically. But yeah, he hasn't played in the playoffs. But even that, though, they did give up a decent chunk of capital. So I like it. I like the hire. It's just, I think you've got to be cautiously optimistic, right? We've not going to sit here and say, "Oh, the Rangers are winning the Stanley Cup." They got a lot of work to do, you know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like we kind of both said, like good hire, but like, this team is not in a spot where you can't you could be excited to some degree, but I mean, especially after what the season was last year and the season before, how they like, polar opposites, kind of like, you know, we got to see what's going to go on first before I can really say anything. It might not even be anything to do with Sullivan either. I mean, because if this team's roster doesn't improve at all, can you really blame Sullivan? I mean,
Yeah,
he's got to make the playoffs. I'd say at this, like, if the roster is somewhat the same, you got to at least make the playoffs. And if you don't win it all, like, I don't blame you because this roster is not good enough to win it all. But I think at the very least, this team has to make the playoffs where I'd feel good about Sullivan.
yeah, and it does get to a point too, and maybe it's already gone to this point where, and we've said this a lot, it's both coaching and players, but if you get to the point where like Sullivan's not working here and 2 years from now we are looking at a new head coach, then you completely have to look more so at the players than the
Yeah.
coaches. Because like you mentioned, he is a top 5 coach. He's won back-to-back Stanley Cups. In terms of resume and track record, by far better than what Laviolette, especially recently, than what Laviolette and even Glant, brought to the table. Like Sullivan's not one of these retreads. He's still a guy that can coach and take a team to a high level. So if that doesn't work, there's not any other bridge you could cross at that point if you're Drury or this roster. Like this is it. This is it. This is
doomsday.
It's put up or shut up. They've got to fix the way they play. They got to fix defensively as well. They've got to be a lot better.
Yeah,
that's something that he's going to have to implement. Just
you've got to hold players accountable.
Yeah, I am interested to see what. Let me see. Like I am interested to see just what like his plan would be, or just how, from the power play perspective, how much it can possibly improve this year. And I mean, everywhere really needs to improve. But
I mean, yeah, that's definitely got to be that has to be improved. I mean, it was so bad last year.
Yeah,
that we were top 3 every year for the last like 3 years, and then they completely fall off to like, I don't know, where did it finish? Like 28th, something like that.
Yeah, I was just pulling up the stats now. That's what I wanted to check. They were 28th, 17.6%.
Yeah, I mean that can't happen again. So, like I said, you got to hope that he comes in and kind of takes a hold of his locker room, but at the same time, I don't really blame him if he can't, because his locker room's kind of, they kind of ran through a bunch of coaches for the better or for the worse of what those coaches brought it here. But I don't know. I think that's something that needs to be more of a change in the management, how they're paying guys, how they're getting guys. Like, I think Drury's got, if this doesn't work out, I'm thinking it's more so a Drury problem, but you just got to hope that I just want him to be more aggressive and be more of a disciplinarian, accountability guy that's going to go and whoever it is, doesn't matter who's playing bad, you got to bench him. You got to make more changes. Maybe a system that he brings will be better for certain guys. I'm just hoping that there's a big shakeup in this offseason. This team needs a franchise-altering move. Well, and that could be anything, though. It doesn't have to be getting an elite player. You could be sending someone away and rebuilding, but I think they need to make a big move this offseason. It can't just be Kreider. That can't be the one move they make, because if it is, I'm going to be pissed. You can't just get rid of Kreider and then expect everything to work.
Get rid of Kreider, get like a bottom 6 forward and call it a day. No, you can't do that. They might, because that's just what the Rangers
Their
could
defense
do.
Sucks. The defense I was looking over yesterday is terrible.
Yeah,
I mean,
they suck. And that's what I am interested too. Is like,
look at the left side though. Look at their left side defense. Miller and Jones are probably gone, and then it's just Vakanainen. Even the right side isn't great either. I mean, Schneider has been underwhelming. Morgan and Fox, I guess it's okay, but they have no left shot defenseman, and they don't have any centers either. If Zibanejad doesn't play center anymore, it's just Trocheck.
Yeah,
I guess Miller, but he was playing both.
And I am interested defensively. The Rangers played a lot of man. Like, does Sullivan implement more zone, which
I mean, they don't have a
we
lot of good
saw?
foots. Like, a lot of the defense aren't great skaters. Besides
Yeah,
Miller, really use his skating ability, but I don't know.
he
I just
sucks
think
at
that's
everything
something
else.
that they really have to fix that.
Matthew Robertson.
The roster doesn't look good. Personally, though, I think the biggest problem on the team is not Kreider. He wasn't great, but I think that the biggest problem on the team is Zibanejad.
Yeah. Hey,
He's supposed
sold
to
his
be.
apartment.
Let's just say I did see that, but he's supposed to be the best player on this team. He was like your number one center. The Rangers needed him to be the best player, and he's not.
Yep.
So that kind of killed this whole core where he kind of just completely went flat because he used to be able to drive play that good 200-foot game, score a lot of power play goals. He doesn't do any of that. So then you're just relying on Panarin, who's pretty easy. You can defend him pretty easy, especially in the playoffs, just how he plays.
And he doesn't do much else. Like,
yeah, it isn't
he's
like
your
defense.
typical
Like,
West finesse player.
Zibanejad had to be the best player on this team, and he's not. And he's getting paid way too much money.
Or-
And he's clogging this team up. He needs to go. I think if you can get rid of anyone, it'd be him. And then like that is, I'm not even just not because of his contract. I'm just saying that because of his play. But I mean, his fall off was crazy. That's another thing that I didn't like about Drury. Just going out and signing him after a pretty bad season in that COVID year or post-COVID year.
Even the COVID year, though, it was the games against the Flyers that he popped off.
That's what I'm talking about.
Remove those
I'm talking about the year, the COVID year. He was not good. Not good in that year at all. He had two games against the Flyers, and like that was it.
Yep. And he was still under a point per game that year.
Yeah. They need to find a way to get rid of him. They need to find a way to get rid of him. And if they can, great. If they can't, then that's going to be bad. But I think he's someone that this team desperately needs to move off of. Like I said, you need a big move.
No trade. Or all the way to no trade.
He might. If they get rid of Kreider.
We did say that. We talked about that. Like,
deal.
if they
Maybe
move
trade
on
them
from
both.
Kreider,
Maybe they trade them together.
I was sort of saying that last episode, maybe 2 episodes. Like, as much as it might sound like a joke, it's if that's what it takes to get him off the books and get him out of here, then you do it. It might be. It legitimately might be.
It's going to be hard to trade $15 million, though.
No, it's going to be very tough, especially at this point in his career. Trading him 2 years ago might have been easier before we really saw the downfall coming.
But there's a lot of guys that have a lot of pressure on this team, and you got to hope that Sullivan gets the most out of them. Like Lafreniere's got a ton of pressure. I think Fox got a lot of pressure. So,
and maybe we are wrong or not wrong, but maybe they do surprise us and get Mika to trade or waive the no trade. They move him. You move Kreider, which feels it's going to happen. Kreider's going to happen.
Yeah,
which shouldn't be the only move, but there's a very real possibility it is. But maybe Sullivan comes in and says, "This is my team. I need seeing what has happened to the previous 2 coaches, seeing how they haven't gotten anything out of this group with a bunch of East-West finesse players. Like, if he wants more of that North and South physicality, maybe he says, look, trade all 3, Mika, Panarin, and Kreider. You move on from all 3 of them, and they really blow it up. Maybe they surprise us and do that.
If you had to say who's got a better chance of going in the offseason, Zibanejad or Panarin? If one of them were to be traded,
Panarin.
You think?
Like, who I would want or predict?
Who do you think they would?
I would think they would
move on. Is it just because of his contract?
Yeah, I think they'd move on from Panarin. Realistically, if there was one of the 2 of them that get traded, it'd be Panarin. I just don't think they're going to get out of Mika's contract.
Yeah,
Kreider will happen. Who I'd prefer, Mika, because I think Mika's a bigger issue than Panarin.
Yeah,
that's obvious.
I don't know. It's going to be a weird season. I think that there's still optimism where you could, it's not a cup, but maybe you win the playoff series. Maybe.
I mean, and then now what? Like, what's Lafreniere at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. That was a mistake, and I think at the same time too, they getting rid of Kako was stupid. And another thing that pisses me off with Drury, he keeps doubling down on his bad moves.
Yeah,
like he
just extended Parsonen.
Well, that wasn't a bad move.
On the radar for a while.
But you start off with like Busnevich, right?
Mm-hmm.
They made that move pretty bad, and then they just held on to Blais and tried to force him into the lineup. He sucked. And then he's doubled down on the Kako move, where he's extended Borgen almost instantaneously after like what 4 games he played. Bad move.
Yeah.
Same thing with the overall trade of Trouba was good. I thought it was a bad move just extending Vakanainen. That was stupid.
Yeah, and the Trouba trade was good, but the timing of it was off. It should have been something he got done in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, like I really wish that Kaapo Kakko was still here. That's gonna piss me off because he's gonna turn into a good player. I guarantee you he gets like 50 plus. I think he's gonna score 60 to 70 points next year. Watch.
There's, I mean, yeah. I guess the question would be like if it was ever gonna even work here at this point. Like maybe he just needed a change of scenery. That kind of felt like where it was headed. That would be my only other, and that would be my only other thing to the Kakko is he was just so broke here. I mean, he was a non-factor. Right? They've ruined him in a lot of ways, and that's on a lot of people. But you know, I guess from Drury's perspective, from the Rangers' from the other side of it would be like, was he ever going to be? If he would have stayed with the Rangers, I mean, who even knows if we would have seen 30 points out of him from what he put up in Seattle?
What did he get? Like 44 points this year, I think. 45 points. Maybe?
Yeah, 44 combined. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
know. In 79 games, I think, between the two.
I don't know. So. I think that like I'm saying, like make or breaks. Like Lafreniere's got to. If Lafreniere doesn't put up 70 points this year, I'm going to be really disappointed. Like I
just need to see a little bit more effort out of Lafreniere this year too.
Especially
last year, he checked out.
Yeah, very lazy.
He completely checked out, and he was asked about that a couple times post game. I mean, it was very noticeable.
His effort was bad, and he was really never benched either.
No,
he made some boneheaded
None of them were
games. They took a bunch of penalties.
They took out Perreault out of the lineup in meaningless games when he could have been playing, which is ridiculous.
I don't know. I mean, like he's gotten to a point where like I don't really care if he gets benched if he plays bad, because he's been in the league long enough where it's like Lafreniere, where it's like if you're making mistakes, you got to get benched.
And they extended him another.
Right
completely
away.
Disappeared after the contract.
Drury's.
I mean, he was awful. Like he didn't even have any stretches after the contract that give you any confidence. It's not like it was a bad month, bad week, whatever. It was.
He'd have like a bunch of like 10. He would go like 10 games without scoring.
Yeah,
and he probably had like multiple. He probably had like 4 or 5 like 10-game stretches where he didn't score a goal.
Yeah, he was a non-factor, and he wasn't. I think he had 1 point or maybe 2. Maybe that. Didn't he score in that Islanders 9-2 blowout? Maybe he had an assist, but
probably
in just the month of April alone, he had 1 goal, I believe. That's the only one. It was horrible. I mean, I think even what he was like, and I know there were shorter months, but I think February too, he only had like a goal or 2. He was awful.
No, awful. He wasn't good. I mean, they jumped the gun on that, and again,
they jumped the gun on so many.
That's a double down move though, because they
didn't really jump the gun on Mika. They were like late.
He was your first overall pick, so they feel like they have to extend him.
Yeah, because especially after moving on from Kakko.
Yeah,
try and double down on. We got one of these picks to work out.
I mean,
even Lafreniere, even as he's played, he's never lived up to that. He's never like.
No.
He'll never. Him and Kakko, obviously Kakko's gone, but Lafreniere as well. Like speaking of Sullivan, that was like your Crosby Malkin. They'll never even sniff that.
No, they'll never.
Kakko won't. Lafreniere definitely won't.
I don't think they'll ever get point. I don't think they'll ever be point-a-game players.
No,
I mean, you got to get. I mean, you take 2 forwards.
I mean, if there was a year for Lafreniere to do it, it probably would have been this year, coming off of the season he had last year.
They got 2 players, first and second overall, back-to-back years, and didn't hit on either of them.
One of them too was extremely lucky.
I mean, granted, they're solid middle 6 forwards, but I don't care. Like, if you're not an all-star, if you're not an all-star player, I think it's a bust. If you're drafted that high,
and just simply in this market, this town, this team, to be number 1, number 2, not even just all-star, you got to be a foundational core piece for the next
franchise player.
Yeah, franchise player. You've got to be the face of the franchise. Nope. And the 2 of them aren't even all-stars. They're not even.
No.
They're middle six. They're not even like first
okay
players.
They're like decent NHL players.
Yeah, they're slightly above average. Even if they weren't elite, but they were like really good, they're not even that. They're good at best.
Yeah,
like Lafreniere, Kakko, they never give you that.
I would take
Kakko
have given easily.
You elite.
I take Kakko easily over Lafreniere. I don't really think it's close. I mean, they score around the same.
I mean,
I think if you give him playing time, like if Kakko was playing if Kakko played the whole last season with Panarin and Trocheck, the way that those two guys were playing last year, he would have had, I think, more points than Lafreniere. So the point totals, I think, is around the same. I think he's got a better shot. He's a stronger player, better defensively, better cycler. Like Lafreniere, maybe he's a little bit better at stick handling,
more physical too. Kakko.
Like, I haven't really. Now I'm kind of just thinking about it as the season's ended. Like, I'm really upset they got rid of Kakko. I think that was a piece that, even though, like we said, he wasn't an elite player, it's someone that you can have on your team that's going to play a lot of valuable minutes. I mean, if you look at Buchnevich, I mean, he was never at a high level scoring with the Rangers, and he was just developing. And then they got rid of him right away. Like, it's going to be another Buchnevich. I guarantee you, he's going to be like a point a game player. I said he wasn't. I think he is. He will be, just because he's not on the Rangers. But Lafreniere
That's another thing. They're not even. They won't even.
Watch Kakko next year score like 80 points. It's very, very likely. I mean, he's going to get a lot more playing time. He's going to play the power play again next year on a not so great team.
I guess I just never saw it happening here. Like, he was so far gone, and that's, to me, it's more so the trade to me doesn't really hurt me. It's more so the handling of him during his time here.
They never really gave him a fair chance.
They didn't give him. I'm not gonna. 5 years from now, if he's a point per game player, or even has just turned into what Buchnevich is now, I'm not gonna be all up in arms about the trade. I'm more so gonna be upset about the way that they.
He should have had one full season of power play, one full season of top six, and let him go through his bad struggles. Instead, they gave him a couple shifts here and there, couple games, and he wasn't great, so they sat him down right away. Never got playoff time or power play time. How are you going to develop?
And that's why they're in such a tough spot, because they sort of went all in, put their chips in the center for a cup.
They rushed the rebuild. They went all in with these veteran players. Completely,
and now they're behind a lot of these teams that they were once ahead.
They alienated all their younger players and did not developed.
The only guy that's actually developing is Cooley. The only one.
But he's
and
not.
You know what's funny?
He's not even someone that should have been that like. You can prop them for that, but like he's someone that is developing at where he's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like he's probably like a third line player where he was like drafted to be, or
second round pick.
Has exceeded that. Where these guys need to get playing time to really develop their. Like they're more of a talent-driven player. Where like,
well, that's the funny part.
You need more ice time. Or Cooley can develop when
Cooley's the complete opposite of what the Rangers
are.
Yeah.
Cooley can develop his game just playing third line because he just goes out there, skates around, be physical. He doesn't really need to develop more of that offensive game where now I think he will just because he's actually getting a lot better. But I think a guy like Lafreniere and Kakko, those two type of guys, were drafting that high, they need to be playing a lot, and they weren't. Like Lafreniere is first overall pick, right? First overall pick. From what? It's almost 5 years. It's 5 years now, and he's never been a sustainable power play guy. He hasn't like been on a power play unit on this team.
Nope.
Which is crazy. And he's
even in a year like this where the unit's awful.
And last year and this year, the first 2 years that he played top six.
Yep.
So just the mismanagement, and like that's Jory's fault, because at the end of the day, he could go down and be like, hey, like listen, I know you're the coach, but we got to develop these guys, and I don't know.
He hired these coaches too.
Yeah, they're the ones that he's their boss. So,
I don't know how anybody can look back. I saw this one guy. I know you were going back and forth. The one guy was like, what, on Twitter about how Drury's good GM or whatever. It's like, I don't know how. Just argument-wise, you don't have enough.
People are all saying the Miller trade, but like that trade was made for this team to make the playoffs, and they didn't.
Yeah, they missed.
It's still a failure of a trade.
Yeah, And how is the Miller trade going to overtake what has happened these last two deadlines?
He's a good player. On paper, it's a good trade, but in the overall scheme of things, I don't think it really is a difference maker.
It's a good trade, but
it's not like it was the team last year.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Or 2 years ago, or I guess 2 years now. If that trade was made in the 23-24 season, that's a home run trade.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going at is everybody wants to praise Drury for the Miller trade. Well, where was a trade like that? Where was the Gensel trade? Where was that big needle moving?
When we had
actually won the President's Cup and had a legitimate shot, not getting Miller just to try and squeak into the second wild card so you can lose in 5 to the Capitals. Like, where was that last year? To all the fans, to everybody that wants to praise him for the JT Miller trade, well, great. What about last deadline? Where was that? Pathetic. And then, of course, they went for Kane and Tarasenko, and that blew up. So
where do you see them going with this pick? Do you see them taking it, or do you think they're going to give it off till next year and keep their pick next year?
It's so tough. I kind of see both sides of it. I can understand both sides of keeping it and then thinking that this team can be just, a little bit better than they were last year. But I also get the risk with that where if this team does bottom out and maybe they really do kind of blow it up a bit where maybe they trade, right, Kreider, Mika, and Panarin and they go with a whole different look, which could be a good thing, honestly. Those guys are they all have issues, but then next year you're looking at more of like a retool year and then load back up for 26 or 26, 27 at that point. But and you don't want to miss out on a chance because it's what our luck would be. They get a lottery pick.
They get the Penguins get Gavin McKenna next year.
Yeah.
Worst record. Like, that's why I don't think you can keep the pick because you can't even. That can't. That
I just don't.
Happen. That cannot.
Even as bad as this. Yeah, even as bad as this team, as bad as the outlook on this team looks right now, I still think this team can get to the playoffs next year.
Well, I mean, if you do somewhat turn it around next year and somehow magically it's all better.
Even if they're these games, like you look at some of the losses they had this year, better coaching, just slightly better power play. They win 5 to 7 more games than they won last year. Not much.
Yeah. But I don't really think it's honestly just the fact that they could get a high pick. It's also the fact that, like, number one, whoever they draft at 12 overall is not going to be on the team for years. Number one. Number two, you can have that pick and trade at the deadline next year. So if you're good, it's going to help you. If you're bad, it's going to help you. That pick helps you either way.
Yeah.
It doesn't really help you that much this year. The only way it helps you is if the kid that you drafted 12 turns into like a superstar, which, again, that won't be for years down the line. So Drury won't even be on. Drury won't be the GM.
We'll be on our.
Here's a prediction. Here's a prediction.
He won't.
Drury will not be the general manager of the team when whoever's number 12, whether it's the Rangers or not the Rangers, that guy will make his debut, and Drury will not be the.
There's a chance Drury's not even the GM for if they win the lottery next year.
Yeah. So at the same thing, Drury, like that, I don't even think it should be discussed. I think it's a simple like, hey, listen, we got Miller. Move on from the pick.
And then take your chance in next year.
Like I said, it's a win-win. You're either going to get around the same pick next year if you're around what we were this year. You're going to be a lot better if you win, or it's going to be a lot better if you're worse or win the lottery. Yeah. Or if you're going to make the playoffs, you trade at the deadline. It's a simple thing, and I don't really see any argument of you picking 12. But if they do, it probably won't be good because it's the Rangers.
No. And at this rate, even if they were picking one or two,
who was the last player that the Rangers drafted that turned into a really good player? Talkin? That was in 2014.
Yeah, I mean,
that was like 11 years ago.
What, Cooley in 2020? It was better than Lafreniere.
Lafreniere's not great. Kakko wasn't great. Hito was solid, but like always got hurt.
He's gone.
Faceoff sucked. Lundqvist wasn't great. Who else am I forgetting? Anderson, that guy sucked. Like. They haven't like Emery. I don't think he's going to be good. I've heard a lot of like bad stuff. Again, it's way too early. Perot again. We'll see. I think Othman's probably not going to be that great just because he's not a good skater. Like it's a trend of just bad picks. I mean, maybe I guess in the 2010s they had some good luck. I mean, you draft Miller was pretty good. Shea was okay. Who am I forgetting? Kreider was drafted in 2009, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was okay. So he had a couple decent draft picks there, but like, you know, that team was drafted pretty well, I think, the 2010s team. I mean, a couple of those guys weren't their draft picks, like Nash and McDonough. But other than that, I feel like a lot of those guys, most of the core guys, they ended up drafting, like Stepan, Kreider, Zuccarello, Stahl, Girardi. But we haven't really seen a team in a while where it's made up a bunch of Ranger draft picks. I mean,
when's the last just in
since this team has been rebuilt,
yeah,
and they put out the letter, how many staple guys have been draft picks?
not many. I mean, the only guys that are really on the roster, right, are what, Perot?
But I'm just saying,
Hoffman, who still hasn't scored.
when we went through that 3-year run, not this year, the past 3 years, like how many guys are like staple good players? Like none.
Well, I mean, they had what, the four straight years of top 10 picks, and you swung and missed on all of them. Essentially,
I'm just saying,
the best is Lafreniere.
If you want to say Miller and Schneider and Lafreniere,
like
those guys were like, but those guys weren't a part of the core group of like guys in your team. No. Kreider was the only one.
Yeah, because Kravtsov was a disaster.
It was just Kreider.
Anderson didn't work.
It was Kreider and Shesterkin. Like Panarin brought in, Strome brought in, Trocheck was brought in, Fox brought in, Lindgren brought in. I'm forgetting someone. Panarin brought in. Like I said, like Zibanejad, he was brought in. Like all these guys were not drafted by the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the three young forwards, the kids, I guess, those guys were brought in. But again, they were drafted, but they weren't. They should have been. They weren't as impactful as they should have been. And I consider it the same way as Schneider and Miller. Like I feel like Schneider and Miller and the three kids kind of developed in the same way, where they weren't great, but they weren't like awful. But at the same time, it's like you got to get like at least one really good player at one of these draft picks. I mean, they swung and missed. I don't know how many that is since 2017 when they put out the letter. And maybe they had like I don't know.
I mean, if anything, they've hit on more of their.
Maybe we've drafted 12 guys in the first round, 10 guys, and none of them have been.
Good. They've hit on more of their middle round picks as opposed to first round picks. If you think about it,
I mean, there's a possibility. I don't think they're going to trade Lafreniere, but like, there's a possibility that they trade Lafreniere, Schneider, and Miller. How many guys would be left off their draft picks in the first round?
Since 2017.
Since 2017, it would just be Othman and Perot.
Yeah,
because I think they're going to move off of Miller and Schneider. Just because they like Schneider.
Yeah, no, definitely Miller.
If you really like Schneider, you would have not extended Borgen, because Schneider. This is another thing about Schneider, is that he can't develop into a good defenseman if he's going to consistently play third pair defense his whole career. Yeah. He's a first round pick. I think he was like a 15th overall, and he's been third pair defense every year. And not only that, is your third pair usually is where you spend the least money on, right? So a lot of times he's playing with crappy partners. I mean, he played like Justin Braun, Patrick Nemeth,
Chad Ruedel.
I mean, I guess Gustafsson and who am I forgetting? Gustafsson and Mikla were okay, but at the same time, like he's never going to develop ever if he's just playing third pair defense his whole career. So I think they should trade him, get rid of Miller. They're going to probably get rid of Jones. Like defense is a shit show, and this team can't draft. So like that's why I'm saying that. At this point,
Emery.
I mean, he won't be on the team. I guarantee maybe like 5 more years. Who knows?
But in terms of future-wise,
they really have to make sure that they know what they're doing about this draft pick, because I just think it doesn't make any sense to keep it. But Chris Drury knows all, so I don't know.
Yeah, and so do his supporters. Yeah, it's bad. I mean, they're getting more out of like your 6th and like 7th round picks than 6th, 5th round picks than you got out of Rempe and Edstrom. Even Berard are showing more than what Kravtsov and Anderson and freaking Lundqvist and all those guys. Kako not even on the team. Othman still hasn't scored a goal.
Jeez, I wonder when we're gonna start getting like the countdown on that. When Brendan Othman
We
scores
got a
first
first goal pick of the year will be Othman next year.
Both of us pick Othman, so we just tie.
Hey, we might not take a goal. We might not or allow or predict a goal if we take Othman all year. If you think about it. Mancini gone too. That was another one. I mean, that was a 5th round pick.
And he actually didn't look that bad. Well,
no, he didn't. And I don't know. Who knows what Perot is? It's so early to tell. But
yeah, and he'll probably be
if
on the
we're
third
being
line.
honest, he's probably not anything.
He'll be third line. He'll be scratched. He won't get power play time. You know, we've seen this story.
He's your typical. He's going to be your typical Ranger. He's not very physical. He's more finesse, but
at the same time, he also
not very big. He's got to get bigger. He doesn't have much.
He won't get a chance to develop either.
No, he'll be on the third line. Won't play the power play. And that's again like hopefully Sullivan changes that. A third time's the charm, right? Got to be.
We'll see. I mean,
I don't know how insanity.
Final.
They've got to.
Hey, listen, conference final, right?
Yeah.
Vigneault in his first year.
Next year we'll be playing hockey.
Vigneault in his first year went to the Stanley Cup final. Quinn obviously didn't, but then after that, John Glenn conference final, and Laviolette conference final.
You know what stinks? It's just
looking at conference final.
And even though we felt this last year when they lost to the Panthers, I know we were saying it on the pod, but there's nothing worse than like watching these playoff games and realizing that we have to wait a whole nother year to like get back. We could all talk about this team playoffs.
We're 2 years now. 2 years. Gotta wait a whole nother year. After we got eliminated, and then last year, and then this year. 2 years we gotta wait until the playoffs.
That's true, yeah.
So
yeah.
You got it?
Because last year felt forever, but no, nothing else. I just good hire. And
we both like the hire. I guess the next thing will probably
I'm not gonna.
I guess the next big Rangers thing will probably be the draft and then free agency.
Yeah,
trades.
And I know Sullivan will speak on Thursday, so if anything notable comes out of that, we can definitely record and talk about that. And then after that, we could start the preview free agency, all that stuff. I'm sure there'll be some rumors, so we'll talk about that.
Should be a fun off season.
Landing spots for some of these guys.
This has to be a dramatic offseason. It can't just be like, release Barkley Gaudreau, trade for Smith, sign Carrick. That's it. So that's all I got.
Yeah. Might go that way, though. Anyway, that'll do it. This time next year, Eastern Conference Finals bound. That's the one guarantee. And then the year after that will be out in the first round. So, or not even make the playoffs. One or the other. So it's a vicious cycle. But talk to you guys soon.